of substandard fertilizer and circulation of fake KEBS stamps. This is the government's bid to fight counterfeit. We shall also be discussing that a little bit later. Still on the same, we're expecting that Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i is set to appear before a joint sitting within the National Assembly of both the Trade as well as Agriculture Committee, who have been probing the contraband sugar that has been traced across the country over the last 2 weeks. We're also receiving unfortunate news that 2 people have died and several others nursing. What reports indicate serious injuries after a matatu they were traveling in Mombasa actually rammed into lorry. We shall keep you up to speed on that. Fred Kai will be giving us those details. And then finally, in Nyeri, we are meant to understand that there was an attack at the house of the area speaker. Fortunately, the speaker and his family were out of the house at the time of the attack. Police are currently, as we speak, investigating what exactly transpired. We also meant to understand that they took with them one of the security guards, but were able to release him somewhere in Nyeri town. So we shall keep you up to speed about how that develops. Now remember, our text line is 21222. The hashtag is the Daily Brief. We're following very closely live from the Milimani Locots, but first we have pictures coming from Mombasa, where that particular accident happened. Like I'd mentioned, Fred Kai is actually there at the scene of the accident. Some very, as you can see, those pictures, the kind of impact that came out from there, very disturbing. And of course, our thoughts and prayers are with those who have lost their loved ones this morning in that particular crash. Fred Kai will be giving us an update on exactly what transpired once he's able to speak to some of the witnesses and survivors as well, if any will be in a state to actually speak to us. Let's come back to Nairobi now. We're looking very closely where we're expecting KEBS officials at the high level expected to be arraigned in court, including the managing director, Mr. Charles Songwai, in regards to the irregular importation, or rather what has been described as substandard fertilizer and circulation of fake KEBS stickers. Just last week, we saw him appear before the committees of trade as well as agriculture, and of course he was put to task to answer how sugar that had been found to have extra traces of copper actually had KEBS stickers on them. And of course, the response was that there are also counterfeit KEBS stamps. Joining me right now, we have Peter Chemwigut as well as Justice Juma. And of course, certainly, it's all eyes on the court once again. Seems it's going to be a very busy few months for the Chief Justice and his team within the judiciary. Justice, your thoughts?
Yeah, good morning, Ian. The nation actually is taking a right path in where corruption, I think, is concerned, especially by the effort that has been demonstrated lately by the DCI and, of course, the judiciary, the way they've managed the NYS process.
Yeah.
If we continue in this path, then yes, Kenyans will have trust and faith that yes, the war against graft can be fought. Though still the fighting against the corruption is still leaving various gray areas because we see individuals who actually were just mere handlers of the process being victimized by the persons who they are acting on behalf. We've not seen them coming to book. And we've seen also the politicization of the entire process. And this is what actually Kenyans have always been, theatric that Kenyans have always been treated to when, if corruption is being fought. Because one, corruption to me is not a tribal issue, is not a religious issue. These are individuals who lack ethics. These are individuals actually who would want to destroy, steal and destroy our country. And then we need to deal with them, if not China style, we need to deal with them in our own model, in a way that this vice can stop for us to experience genuine development in our country and for us to move the next generation to the next level.
So you're pushing, or rather suggesting, extreme measures, perhaps in the way that China does on the war against corruption. I'll come back to you. Chemugut, we are at the courts again. This time round, top management of the Kenya Bureau of Standards here, and of course they will be defending themselves. The DCI must be acting based on information he knows. What are your thoughts about this process and how it's going on so far?
First of all, I applaud what the DCI is doing, DPP. You know, obviously, this is really good news, particularly for the Rift Valley farmers, because they really suffered the most from this fertilizer issue. So I'm very happy that, we're starting to see the work that, President Uhuru had promised Kenyans. The issue that is really affecting most Kenyans. I believe what we really need to do as Kenyans, in particular the lawmakers or the legislators, is to keep supporting, and let's slow down the rhetoric. Let's slow down the politics on this, because sometimes it looks like, we seem to drive this agenda on one side of politics. We cannot really win, the war on corruption if we politicize. And I believe giving the facility, DPP, DCI, and supporting the court, let's all work in unity. We can be able to bring this down. But at the end of the day, what is very important is for government to have interrelationship, because this work cannot just be won, by one office. There has to be coordination. Even the Ministry of Agriculture must actually be supporting. The DCI must be supporting, DPP must be supporting the court, so that at least we prevent these issues. Because at the end of the day, these issues affect the life of Kenyans. There are millions of Kenyans who, depend on farming. And such issue, fertilizer that's not well, to the standard, putting stones, what you have, it's not really good. So I'm very happy. But I just hope it won't be politicized. Let's do this in a sober way and attack it in a way that will actually find a solution to the larger problem we face.
Let me just bring you up to speed before I come to justice. Of course, we're following two events happening right now. Is that we're expecting top KEBS management to be presented in court, as you can see at the top of your screen, and then at the bottom, the joint sitting of the Committee on Trade as well as Agriculture of the National Assembly, expected to grill, among others, the Interior Cabinet Secretary. This is a joint effort to find out answers about contraband goods, specifically sugar, which last week revelations by the Kenya Bureau of Standards, when they appeared before the very same committee, actually confirmed that indeed there are traces of copper on that particular sugar, 10 times more than is the standard. Justice, over to you.
Yes, actually, I would, as I address this, I would also want to underscore the political statement that some people brought out, that mercury is too expensive to put in sugar, or copper metals. And I need to remind us on some occurrence which happened here centuries ago. In 1895, 1895, yes. The South African President P.W. Botha speech to his cabinet, 1985, sorry. And then in his speech, Botha categorically brought out what is spelled out as his government strategy on how to fight. By then, what they were fighting was the black community through the apartheid regime. And they said their war is not a war that they were going to use the atomic bombs or guns to kill a black. They were going to engage on biological and on chemical and social warfare. And these are not things that are new or foreign. Lately in the political arena, they've lauded the use, the Grecian philosophy on 48 rules of power, which actually is a copy of the protocols of the Jewish protocols of the landed elders of Zion. And if you look at the protocols and the agendas that were then in 18th century, and if you look at them, you read them clearly, you see, and you can see them play today exactly, because both as war, they said they were going to use a chemical warfare, and that was injecting blacks with vaccines that in the long run would kill them and will bring, control their population. And some also, they were using their food, especially the soft beverages. And to date, and even to date, Coca-Cola that we keep on advertising in our local medias in Kenya or Africa, you'll find if you go to countries like Israel or Britain, they are banned things because they, actually, if anything, you can only sell zero. zero coke, not this one that we're putting here. They are banned thing after they had forced them to expose the recipe. And most of the things that we are having in our country is just that now we are talking about sugar. The Catholics talk about vaccines. And the vaccines, they said these vaccines that they are bringing here, some of them are causing permanent infertility. So if we talk about these cartels, and when I talk about cartels, I'm not talking about these ignorant, selfish, greedy politicians who take side just to get money to go and campaign. They are individuals who plays the piper, and they are the ones who are calling the tune. These persons who are calling the piper, Ian might not even be local guys here. And that's why even Uhuru in his State House probably must be a person that can be removed and can be put in. And we've seen that playing in Africa. So if we understand this narrative and the agendas of these cartels, and the cartels are global, and they're disturbing every government, it's not just Kenya and Africa only. So if we were to wake up to the reality and not support the greedy, selfish, ignorant person who does not know really the actual thing that is at play, then we can help our citizens. And helping our citizens require that we have a founded teamwork approach where all of us work and abide by the rule of law. And the rule of law that we're talking about, it must be law that conform in reality to the interests of our citizens, not the outsiders. And if we continue politicizing, because right now, even the media is blowing the narrative of so-and-so is fighting so-and-so, so-and-so, and these are just ignorant, selfish individuals who are very greedy and taken by their greed, and now their greed actually is putting everybody at risk because of the things they're involved with, which they do not know. But these individuals have the capacity for purposes of population control. Why would you be intensively fighting to negatively control the population of Kenyan citizens? Because if you compare Kenyan citizen population vis-a-vis, let's say, for example, UK population is around 80 million. Their landmass is actually almost 3 times fitting into Kenya. Kenyan population, it was, according to last census, it was around 40 million.
So are you blaming what we're going through as an issue of bad governance, or what exactly are you agitating for here?
The leadership that we are having, number one, bad leadership who are not aware of the enemy they're fighting. And they can be played due to their greed and selfishness, especially for money, to plunge the entire nation into a crisis. And these are the things we're talking about. Because Matiang'i brought it out and said that, yes, there was mercury in these things. And because of some who were selfish and greedy, and then Matiang'i conscience was coming out. You'll see that Matiang'i's narrative, as we're talking, they'll be profiling Matiang'i and they'll be making it whatever they want to make it. Why? To defend greed and selfishness, which, due to the ignorance of what they do not know about the enemies out, from outside.
Thank you, Justice. Chemagut, if this is an issue of governance, then the only time Kenyans have to perhaps change those who they elected directly is all the way up to 2022. So then, if his argument is correct, then we might have to stick with the same kind of leadership all for the next 4 years.
Well, I disagree with him because at the end of the day, it's not really the politicians or the top leaders who can actually change the way things are done. You know, the counterfeit issue is an issue that is so big. It's a big issue for one. First of all, is the KRA is missing so much to be able to, you know, to get it. Number two is the issue of jobs. And then number three is the issue of, you know, making, you know, our products, you know, genuine products competitive. So I believe actually the issue of counterfeit really needs to be looked at holistically. You know, let's keep in mind, you know, there are about four institutions that are tied to, you know, counterfeit. We have KRA, we have, you know, anti-counterfeit, we have the KEBS, we have the border patrols. You know, all those institutions, they seem not to be working in tandem. You know, the other day at the airport, you know, some of the officials who work, you know, at the airport, they couldn't even allow, you know, some of the counterfeit officials to, you know, to access some of the airport. So you see this lack of cooperation. And now, you know, you see this cartel, they actually penetrate that, or they use that loophole. So at the end of the day, if we really have to win the war on counterfeit, then we must put enough capacity to these institutions, put enough staff. You know, some of these staff actually, some of these organizations don't even have enough staff to be able to be able to prevent this. But at the end of the day, what is actually also contributing big time is the issue of policy. Okay. You know, I think the government, for some reason or the other, messed a little bit when they issued the import. You know, the way it was done and the timing it was done around election time, you know, it gave, you know, other, you know, importers an opportunity to exploit the market. And let's keep in mind, Brazil, let's just use sugar, for instance. Brazil sugar is very cheap. You know, the sugar we produce in Kenya is expensive. So the only way we can be able to prevent these issues from happening is even make our own products competitive, make our own products, you know, cheap. Because at the end of the day, any Kenyan, anywhere,
and
anytime.
all this, according to you, is just an issue of policy.
It's an issue of policy, yes.
Which then almost quietly takes us back to our members of parliament. Your thoughts on that?
Well, that's part of it. Yeah. But also keep in mind, we also have the policing unit. Okay. So it's everybody. Everybody has to do something. And everybody must do their part correctly. In 2014 or 2013, thereabouts, you know, I believe the president really tried to work on this issue of, you know, counterfeit sugar. And I believe they were almost successful. Then it went off the radar. And now it's just up again. I know one of the weaknesses we have is we seem to be reacting to issues. Instead of really trying to prevent them from happening, we react to it when something has happened. And that has to change. There's another point that I want to put. East African community. For us to really win this war, also we have to work with our neighbors. Keep in mind, like, for example, the sugar that is actually imported through Somali border. Yeah. There's no way we can say we are working counterfeit without working with our partners, you know, with our neighbors. You know, Ethiopia, Uganda, Tanzania. We really need to work together because this is an issue, I believe, is not only a Kenyan issue. This issue is affecting Uganda, this issue is affecting Tanzania, this issue is affecting Somalia, and we're talking about economy, we're talking about jobs, we're talking about income opportunities for the government, taxes. Yeah. So this is an issue that we really have to even talk about in East African Parliament. So it's an issue that really needs joint effort within the, you know, the institutional policing, within the legislators, within the executive, and most important, even the citizens also need to have awareness to be able to know, is this counterfeit? So it's a war that all of us really need to play a big role.
Thank you, Chimuguto. On your screen, two events happening right now. Is that below, we can actually see Kenya Member of Parliament, Kanini Kega, who's the chairperson of the Committee on Trade, as well as members of the Agriculture Committee. Actually, let's just listen into some of the things that they are raising there. I'm meant to understand expected there today is Interior Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Fred Matiang'i. Let's listen into the Joint Committee.
From the chair, and I think there was an issue that was raised when we were here in regard to joint committees, and I think it will be important for me also to refer to our standing orders regarding joint committees. It is under standing order 202. Joint committees of joint sittings of committees of the National Assembly. 1. The Committee of the National Assembly considering similar matters may, with the approval of the Speaker, hold joint sittings. A joint sitting of the committee shall be chaired by one of the chairpersons of respective committee, and the chairperson shall be determined based on the ranking order set out under paragraph 2 of standing orders 3 into bracket proceedings on assembly or proceedings on assembly of a new house, and the second ranking member of other committee shall also deputize. In the standing order, paragraph 2 or standing order number 3 says, for clarity, and I think it's important that we also clarify that. Proceedings of a National Assembly of a new house. On the first sitting, 3.1, on the first sitting of a new house, pursuant to President's notification under Article 126(2) of the Constitution, the clerk shall administer oath of affirmation of office provided for in the third schedule to all members present in the House. The clerk shall administer the oath of affirmation of members in alphabetical order using the following order of precedence. A, members with the longest cumulative period of serving in the National Assembly. That is the clause that I was referring to, just to make sure that at least we are in tandem with the standing orders. So with that, honorable members, our guests, all our witnesses are not yet in, and I think we need to I want to give this opportunity to the chair, my co-chair here, and also the chair for agriculture to also say something.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. First of all, I want to welcome you, this joint committee sitting, this honorable committee, whose mandate is basically tasked with the investigation, examining, scrutinize, and table a report on the House in relation to statements sought by Honorable Naisula Lesuda, MP Samburu West constituency, on the alleged importation of sugar found to be unfit for human consumption, as it contains mercury and copper that is believed to have adverse effect on human health. This joint committee is expected also to further examine whether the imports are compliant to tax payment to the Kenya Revenue Authority as provided in the relevant tax laws. We also, in the process of these proceedings, we need to understand the operational framework for sugar importation and trade. There is need to review the role of the state agencies charged with the regulatory environment, as well as the sugar deficit that occasion the importation of the commodity. So basically, our TOR for this joint sitting is to investigate, to examine, to scrutinize, and table a report to the House on the issue of sugar laced with mercury, and also to be able to probe and get to the bottom of how much sugar was imported into this country, whether there is justification for that, and who were behind this importation. That basically is the task that is ahead of us today, and I want to call upon honorable members. We will have to run this meeting.
The chairs of the committees of both trade as well as agriculture reading their standing rules right now, but I'm meant to understand that they have summoned among them the Cabinet Secretary for Industrialization, that is Aidan Mohammed, Dr. Fred Matiang'i of Interior, as well as Mwangi Kiunjuri for Agriculture. Gentlemen, it would be interesting to see whether these three will show up, because over the past few weeks, the committees have been raising concerns specifically about cabinet secretaries who are failing to honor some of these summons. Your thoughts on that, Justice? If
they are ethically or morally have conscience in terms of the responsibility that comes with the office that they are bearing, actually some of them would have stepped aside and even resigned for the investigation to happen. And I'm not even pushing it down to the CAs themselves. Mm-hmm. The person who gets security details and reports on a daily basis about the country is the top CEO, the president. And he knows what is happening where and why. And this aspect of let loose, then you chase. Because when this thing was happening, there were watchmen. There are people in the know-how, because the government has a capacity that you cannot even fathom. If you look at the forces of the intelligence and all other departments, okay, it cannot catch the government by a surprise that such things are happening.
Why do you think, perhaps is it a hesitation coming from the cabinet secretaries, or perhaps is it for lack of a better word, respect for these committees?
Well, at the end of the day, it's a tough call, and at the moment where they are, because some of these things can also lead to self-incrimination, where you saw Ongwae went and represented last Monday very well, and in the end result by Friday is in the cell due to self-incrimination. And then we've seen varying perception in terms of industrialization, yes, and the security.
His interior counterpart.
So if they go public with the same, which maybe they are fearing, but if I were them, I would go. For purposes of accountability, because that is their mandate and is required of them to account on what is happening under their portfolio.
Chebukati, I'll come to you. Let's cross over to Kisumu first of all. Remember, this is a story of national concern, especially after revelations last week by the KEBS management confirmed that indeed there are traces. In fact, 10 times more of copper in that sugar that was confiscated in the previous weeks. Baraka Karama now joins us live from Kisumu. Baraka, very good morning to you. How are the people there reacting to all this that is developing?
Well, Ian, a very good morning to you back there in Nairobi. Indeed, as you've mentioned, the issue of the contraband sugars, of course, elicited mixed reaction. And in various quarters, of course, that issue has raised fears and tension among the residents of this particular region. Remember, last week, the MD for Kenya Bureau of Standard, Charles Ongwae, confirmed that indeed the sugar substance that was tested had contents of copper. So, of course, that has raised quite fear among the residents of this particular region. I remember we've also seen arrests that have been made, and today you expect the MD for the KEBS and other top officials to be arraigned in court in regards to that particular story. So, of course, we are trying to sample views from a cross-section of residents in regards to that particular story. Just allow me to take a comment from one of the residents of Kisumu. Just come. Okay, kindly just introduce yourself and give us your reaction in regards to the latest development. We've seen top officials for KEBS being arrested in regards to the contraband sugar. What is your comment about that as the residents of this particular region?
As a resident of Kisumu County, one of the things that I want to say, my name is George Collins Owuor, Executive Director, Transform Empowerment for Action Initiative. I think, first of all, I want to congratulate the President for having taken the initiative of insisting that he wants to promote the values that entails ensuring that there is transparency, accountability in terms of what is happening. But it is laughable that as we speak, with all these issues that have come up, we still see people in offices still attending meetings as ministers, as directors, as advisors, and to me, this is why many people like me think this is a public gimmick, because we cannot say that the sugar industry is being affected. Some of us, we have gone to school because of the sugar plantation, but I can tell you today, it is so sad that a farmer is not able to sell his or her sugarcane because some people have decided to import sugar, and this sugar is affecting the industry. So this is what I want to say. The minister in charge of internal security has been very fast when he was the Minister for Education. In terms of any report that was given, he took it with speed and arrested people and brought them to court. Why is he taking so much time to execute the same? Secondly, Parliament. We are wondering, and more specifically to the members of Parliament who are coming from the sugar-prone areas where sugar is being grown. Why are they all over quiet, or are they also part and parcel of this cartel that is selling the sugar? Why can't we elect MPs to be out there to represent the interests of the people? And one of the functions that they are doing is to represent our interests. How comes I have not heard these members of Parliament, specifically in areas where sugarcane is being grown, coming out categorically, and even this is the time that they should organize people to demonstrate in terms of what is happening. Because we cannot continue doing business as usual if everything is going down. And that is why I am insisting that as a civil society member who believes on Article 10 of the Constitution, that talks about participation, it talks about integrity, and it talks about decision making. That is very core in this process. Anybody found culpable of sugar, anybody who has been dealing in this business, who is bringing our resources down, should be taken to court and judged. And indeed, I know the President has a good faith, he has a goodwill of ensuring that he leaves a legacy that is going to move this county to the next level. So we cannot continue lamenting and playing around with people's minds and emotion, thinking that by appearing before Parliamentary Select Committee is going to solve this problem. This problem is going to be solved only and only if the managing directors, the ministers in charge of these kind of things are able to step aside, for thorough investigations so that we can discuss the issue of sugar once and for all. And this is not the first time it is coming out. These are things that has been discussed for a very long time. And we know that there are people who are part and parcel of these things and they are keeping quiet. So I want to challenge, first of all the members of parliament who are coming from the sugarcane areas to stand up and denounce in any matter possible, to insist that whoever is culpable of bringing sugar in this country and bringing down our industry, action must be taken. Thereafter, let the minister in charge of internal security arrest these people and bring them before court so that the due process can be taken, so that we can get justice and we can embrace the food security and the nature in which the sugarcane industry has been supporting a number of people.
Well, Ian, you've had views from a cross-section of the residents of Kisumu County, just giving us their take in regards to the latest developing story as far as the issue of the contraband sugar is concerned. Remember, that issue has raised fears among the residents of this particular region. So, of course, we are still taking a bit into that, and, of course, we'll give you an up-to-date information in regards to that particular story. Ian.
Thank you very much, Baraka Karama, for that. And just, as a pointer there, the Kenya Bureau of Standards Managing Director Charles Ongwe and the 9 other senior officials from KEBS were arrested in connection to the importation of substandard fertilizer and circulation of fake KEBS stamps and not of sugar. Just to point that out clear, because investigations into the contraband sugar are still ongoing. So we're taking a short commercial break. We'll be right back. Following very closely, we're yet to see whether 3 cabinet secretaries summoned by the joint sitting of the National Assembly, that is of Trade as well as Agriculture, will actually appear. And I'm talking about Cabinet Secretaries Aden Mohamed, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, as well as Mwangi Kiunjuri. We shall listen into some of the deliberations happening right now on the floor of the House. Stay tuned.